1.
Hello there, U.S. history students. Mr. Deegan reporting for D226 News. It's 3-5 VidNotes time, and it's learning target time. Please write this. I will understand how the Supreme Court became an equal branch of the national government. And here is the logo of the Supreme Court. On we go. A Virginia judge changes everything. Here is a picture of that judge, Supreme Court Justice, Supreme Court Chief Justice, who is the head of this court, John Marshall, led a group of judges that established important legal precedents. Precedents mean examples that strengthened the role of the Supreme Court. This man is a Virginian. We should be proud. What is the Supreme Court? It's part of the judicial branch of the federal government. The Supreme Court's job is to evaluate laws to see if they follow the Constitution. And the Supreme Court is the most powerful court in the entire U.S. with 9 judges. And here you see the judicial branch, one of the branches of our government. The Supreme Court has decided some very important cases in our history. The Supreme Court decided to end school segregation with the court case called the Brown versus Board of Education case. This was in 1954. Before that time, blacks and whites had to go to separate schools. The Supreme Court also decided more recently to legalize same-sex marriage. This court case was called the Obergefell versus Hodges case in 2015. Going back to this man, what 3 court cases were important for Chief Justice Marshall and his Supreme Court back in the 1800s? Here's number 1, Marshall Court Case number 1. The name of the court case was Marbury versus Madison. When was it? 1803. What was the story of the case? President John Adams, president number 2, tried to hire friend William Marbury to a government job right before Adams left office. It's a sneaky thing to do. What did the Supreme Court decide? Judicial review. It gives a court power to decide if a law is constitutional. And the Supreme Court said, John Adams, this is too sneaky. We are not allowing you to do this. Here's Madison and here's Marbury. Marshall Court Case number 2. The name of the court case was McCulloch versus Maryland. When was it? 1819. What was the story of the case? Well, there was an economic depression, times were bad, and the state of Maryland tried to sue the Second Bank of the United States. What did this court case decide? It gives implied powers to Congress. Congress has the power to pass laws to tax and borrow money. And it ruled that Maryland did not have any grounds to sue a bank. And here's a cartoon that shows the judge. Establishing a national bank was necessary to carry out Congress's power to tax. And Maryland is saying, exactly, that's why we want it stopped. We don't think Congress has that power. Well, the Supreme Court said, yes, you do. The Marshall Supreme Court Case number 3. The name of the court case was Gibbons versus Ogden. When was it? 1824. What was the story behind the case? 2 men were running competing steamboats in a river between New York and New Jersey. Ogden only had a license to do business in New York. Gibbons had a license from the federal government. And you see in this picture, there's Gibbons, there's his New York license, and there's Ogden, and there's his federal license in the Hudson River by New York City. What did the Supreme Court decide? Well, Gibbons won. His license was more powerful. And it also decided that the Supreme Court has the authority to mediate, in other words, to referee disagreements between branches of governments, levels of government, and competing business interests. This was a powerful thing that the Supreme Court was given. We are almost done. Please think back to what we just learned and think of 2 questions that you would like to know more about. Write those questions down, and when you are done with this lesson. This is Mr. Deegan reporting for D226. Until next time, see you later.